You're listening to the Prepper Recon podcast. For questions, comments, and podcast archives, go to prepperrecon.com.
After a massive wave of disappearances, 26-year-old CIA analyst Everett Carroll finally believes what he's been told about the biblical prophecy of the rapture. Global currencies have collapsed, famine and plague have claimed the lives of millions, and the world has crumbled into chaos. 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 vials of God's wrath are about to be poured out upon the earth, and woe to the inhabitants thereof. Buy your copy of The Days of Elijah, Book 1, Apocalypse, by best-selling author Mark Goodwin, in paperback or Kindle edition from Amazon.com today.
Whether your plan is to bug out or bug in, CampingSurvival.com has all of your preparedness needs, including fish antibiotics, long-term storage food, and water filters. Use coupon code PREPPERRECON for 5% off your order at CampingSurvival.com. Before we get started with today's show, I want to say thank you to all the patriots out there who helped stop Hillary. As I've said over and over, Trump is far from perfect, but Hillary is in a class of wickedness all to herself. And I promise not to get complacent nor sit back, and I ask that you'll stay vigilant as well. I do think that we've been granted a short reprieve, and I pray we won't squander it. I pray we'll use this time to regain some lost ground. To turn back the wheels of injustice, to claw back lost freedoms, to end abortion, and to seek the blessings of the Almighty through obedience to His Word. Today's guest is Cal Wilson, author of the new prepper fiction book, EMP, The End of the Grid as We Know It. Cal, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Mark. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Great to have you back. We dodged a bullet last night, and I guess for anybody who believed the polls, last night's election was a major upset. Is that right?
Yeah, I was really surprised. Remember, I think it was just a week before the election that Hillary was favored to win by 12% or something by some of those polls. And they have to, some of those polls need to have, heads need to be rolling there, because that's ridiculous. You don't lose 12% in 1 week,
Yeah. There were lots of emails that were leaked about the polls that were being, they were sampling a higher number of Democrats than Republicans. So I think a lot of the polls, the institutions that are holding them, I think have lost so much credibility in this election.
Yeah, I think the polls that I was following was IBD Tip and Rasmussen, and they were both right around even as far as the popular vote went. So I'm going to be those polls in my mind have more credibility.
And what outlets did you watch last night as far as news?
Well, I watched Fox News, and because going into the evening, I honestly thought Hillary was going to win, and so I didn't want to see anybody gloat, and. But then when it became apparent that Trump was winning, then I started shifting around to all the left of center news coverage, just because I'm a sadist and I like watching the sad faces.
Oh yeah, that was quite enjoyable. I loved watching Hillary's speech. that was fantastic, and she was all choked up, and it was fantastic.
Oh, it was glorious. Well, we better enjoy it while we can,
Yeah, but, absolutely.
Another thing is the concession was important because, electors are just regular people. And if it was a real close election in the Electoral College, then I wouldn't put it beyond the Democrats to start harassing and bribing or cajoling somehow the electors who are supposed to vote. I think it's mid-December is when they make it official. And there's nothing stopping anybody from contacting them and trying to get them to change their vote.
Yeah, I think we probably would have a civil war on our hands if something like that were to happen.
It could have been really messy, yeah.
And we watched Fox probably for the most part, and we watched some. We flipped around, jumped around. We went to CBS, and then we watched the InfoWars live stream for a while, which I believe they've really established themselves as one of the most credible news outlets all the way throughout the campaign. And also True News with Rick Wiles. He did a really outstanding job of covering all the disgusting information leaked about Hillary over the past several weeks. InfoWars and True News both covered the leaked emails, which revealed Hillary's connection to the convicted child molester Jeffrey Epstein, her connection to Mariana Abramovic, the satanic sex rituals that Mariana would hold at her house. And they really stayed on top of the corruption at the Clinton Foundation and the criminal collusion between the Clintons and the DOJ. And so much of the other stuff that the mainstream media, Fox included, that they just swept under the rug. So I think largely the mainstream media lost so much credibility in this election. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely. When you've got leaked emails from reporters saying, hey, Team Hillary, I'm writing this article. What do you think? What kind of changes should I make? I mean, that should be a credibility loser right there. I mean, and all these emails that have been so completely swept under the rug, it was just amazing. If she had won, then that would have been really there would have been so many congressional investigations of her just based upon what the emails said. It was crazy. You know, and InfoWars, yes, you're right. InfoWars has more credibility in my mind than they have before. Even National Enquirer, you know, they reported the John Edwards thing way back in the day when other mainstream media would not report on it. So yeah, there's definitely some changing around in my mind as far as credibility. I'm not saying National Enquirer is perfectly credible all the time, but it's something for the news consumer to consider when they look out there, that the mainstream, they're acting more like gatekeepers of the news instead of just producing what news is relevant to us as citizens. You know, they're more gatekeepers than really producing the news. So, you know, speaking of InfoWars, and this is a topic you and I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, they're the ones who were leaked some news from the Secret Service that Hillary is suffering from Parkinson's. And that's something that Dr. Ted Noel on YouTube mentioned, is that he thinks that Hillary is suffering from Parkinson's, which is a degenerative neurological disease, but it's also a psychiatric disease. It changes your personality. And as the disease progresses, you start having problems in thinking, you know, and you go through personality changes. So that would have been, if Ted Noel is correct, and he's a doctor, then that would have been a big mess, you know, with a president who has Parkinson's. And that would have been covered by the 25th Amendment on what to do when somebody is not able to perform the job. So it could have been a real mess. I mean, whether you're for or against Hillary, that could have been really ugly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've weeded out anybody that could have possibly been for Hillary. I really doubt unless this is their first time listening to the show, I really don't expect that any of our listeners were rooting for her. I know that I myself had some misgivings about Trump, but, you know, as we said when we were speaking before the show started, you know, he's not Hillary, you know, and whatever his sins are, you know, it's not that just utter wickedness that she displayed with the her association with Jeffrey Epstein and the sex island he has in the Bahamas, and the bizarre sexual rituals that are going on at Mariana Abramovich's house, and things of that nature, and it's just this wicked, evil stuff. And I think getting back to the media and them not covering all of that, I think that you said gatekeepers, and I think that's exactly right. And they think that they have set themselves above the American public, and they're going to tell us what to think, and they're going to tell us what's important and what's not. And I think this election has said so much about the Republican Party, about the American people, and about what we're willing to accept from the media. And I think this really, I think we've seen this sort of grassroots ground swelling of people that are fighting back against it. But we didn't really find out until last night that it had hit this tipping point. And I think with the neoconservative Republicans that are now out because Trump beat them just as much as he beat the Democrats.
Yep.
I think with that, we're seeing this complete sea change in folks gearing more towards the alternative media and wanting less government and wanting to do things different. And I think it's I don't want to get into hyperbole, but I think it's revolutionary. And I think that last night's election was a huge pivot, a huge turning for America. And do you think we're going to continue to see a growing trend of people turning to alternative media, going to places like Drudge, like WikiLeaks, InfoWars, and True News, while they abandon the Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, and Fox? Because I tell you, we were watching Fox late into the night, and even after the New York Times had already pretty much called it and given Trump a 95% chance of winning the presidency, Fox was still in utter denial, particularly Megyn Kelly, who's just, got to be hating it today almost as much as Clinton, I think. But they've just become so much a part of the establishment, and they've been so much like the gatekeepers for the neoconservative arm of the Republican Party, and really just been beholden to the rhinos in the party, I think.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little skeptical on Fox News. I always thought, as far as the news market goes, there's, conservative Americans and liberal Americans. And liberal Americans have to choose between ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, PBS. All of those news outlets cater to liberal Americans. And until recently, it seemed like conservative Americans they could choose from only Fox News, and I thought that was a great business decision by Fox News. But now that I understand Roger Ailes is on his way out, he might be the one who kept it kind of focused on the right of center news consumer. But their Fox News poll was pretty bad. It still predicted Hillary would win by 4%. And it was still almost in the outlier as far as how bad the Fox News poll was heading into the election. So, yeah, I think Fox, unfortunately, is becoming more mainstream. And I think news consumers who want to find out what's really going on that's really important will be turning more to InfoWars and True News. And I find myself going to Zero Hedge a lot and Drudge, just to find out what's the real scoop, what's really going on out there.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. The dollar's lost over 90% of its purchasing power since 1971. Silver, on the other hand, has proven to be a very stable form of wealth preservation over the years. And where do you buy silver? Silver.com, of course. Silver.com offers fantastic prices on gold and silver. Check out Silver.com today. Ready Made Resources is a trusted name in the prepper community because they've been around for 18 years. They offer great prices on night vision, water filtration, long-term storage food, solar energy components, and provide free technical service. Get ready for an uncertain future at ReadyMadeResources.com. Trading Post in the Woods is ran by veteran crisis responders who know how important it is to be prepared. They specialize in comprehensive natural survival remedy kits, preparedness and homesteading supplies, as well as skills training. Visit them online today at tradingpostinthewoods.com. And then, of course, we found out that there were 60,000 felons pardoned by the governor of Virginia. And that's very, very near the number of votes that Hillary won that state by.
Yep.
And if
I
you
saw
add
that
in
rubbish, yeah.
and then you add in those electoral votes and the electoral votes of the states where Obama encouraged illegals to vote, the states where there were massive fraud occurring in the electronic voting machines, and in the states where all the dead people were voting, and the states where there was no ID required, this would have been a massive landslide win. So Trump, despite all of that, still won. So I think that even if it's not officially a landslide, I think when you add all that in, this was a real landslide election.
Yeah, and as I told the wife heading into yesterday, it's a close call, and whenever it's close, that means Democrats win. And so it could be that it was not really a close call. It's just all the dead people voting and the shenanigans that happened with changing votes over from Trump to Clinton. It just added up so much that it looks like it was a close vote with a popular vote, but it might not have really been that way. I mean, that's my theory. But yeah, and I did notice that with Virginia. It's amazing in retrospect that Virginia was so close as it was, and they had to legalize those felons in order to get Hillary put over the top. And that really said something, that Virginia was that close, because Virginia has, Northern Virginia is pretty much a suburb of Washington, D.C., and most everybody in the bureaucracy of the federal government is far, far left. So that state has become, electorally pretty liberal, and it's amazing it was as close as it was.
And several news stations have pointed out that one of the deciding factors in Trump's victory was largely whites without a college degree that were much more likely to vote for Trump. And you can just hear it almost between the lines that they're insinuating that it's uneducated folks that have chosen this president. And it's almost like they're saying ignorant bigots. You can just almost hear them saying that below their breath as they say whites without a college degree. But I see something much deeper in that, and I think the difference is for folks that don't have college degrees. I think a lot of that is that they haven't been through that brainwashing mechanism of the liberal education institution, and that oftentimes just require people to check their common sense at the door. And I have a college degree, and Cal, you're an attorney, so I know you've been deeper down that rat hole than I have. Do you accredit most of your education to being a free thinker and the things that you found out online and your self-study, or do you accredit it to what you got from your time in college? Because for me, I learned very, very little in college, and most of my education has been through learning outside of that and reading outside of that and the research that I do on the internet.
Yeah, I think I was about to write something about this, but I'm a prepper writer, not a political writer. But the long term, I think, of the country is still further left, because there are, I was going to call it like a five-legged stool of propaganda bombarding people. There's entertainment. If you go to a movie, chances are there's going to be some kind of underlying liberal theme. If you go to school, from K to 12 and especially college, you're bombarded daily with leftist messages, news coverage, and that's not only what is covered but what is ignored, like what you and I are talking about, and political correctness, which is kind of a way to shame Republicans and conservatives and Christians into not talking. and the bureaucracy of the government is now geared towards harassing conservatives and Republicans and Christians. The IRS, what happened with the IRS supposedly is still going on as far as IRS harassment, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Back when the IRS scandal broke, there were some people. True the Vote was one of them, where they had several government agencies harassing them all at once, and that's still going on. But in answer to your question, normally when somebody goes to school, K through 12 and then college, they come out a leftist. Every once in a while, it backfires, and I think with me it backfired. It sounds like it might have with you. I'm going into my college years. I wasn't thinking too much either way, but I started resenting the heavy-handed liberal message that was continually forced at me. And it for some reason, I don't know why, it just backfired with me. And there's a small percentage it backfires. And I came out even that much more conservative because of the liberal messages that were thrown at me daily in college. And then law school was pretty much the same, but I was pretty far gone at that point.
And then I do want to take a day or two to be thankful that Hillary didn't win before I get back into pointing out why we have to do better than Trump. And then to recap what we said earlier, we said, for one thing, he represents a very positive change in the direction of the country. Not only did he defeat the Democrats and the liberal media, but he survived the backstabbing by the neocon arm of the Republican Party. He struck down the Bush political machine. He triumphed over the rhinos like McCain and all the people that were in the primaries. They all stood on that stage and took that pledge that I'm going to support whoever gets the nomination. Jeb Bush did not fulfill that. Kasich did not fulfill that. Cruz just barely, by the skin of his teeth, actually supported Trump, and it was like he had to have his arm bent to do that.
Yep.
But so out of that five-legged stool that you've just talked about, we've had a major blow to government, and we've had a major blow to media. But that still leaves us with three legs. So you can have a very stable stool of liberalism on political correctness, education, and entertainment. And that is so ingrained within those three institutions, political correctness being a little bit less tangible than entertainment and education. But the entertainment industry and the education industrial complex, I guess we'll call it, both really, really support the political correctness, and they're not going to let that go. And this is something that do you think we're going to see more assaults against the liberalism in entertainment and education, or do you think that they're so ingrained and entrenched that they're in a bunker, and what can be done about that?
Yeah, I can't foresee any change in entertainment and news media. As far as political correctness goes, there were some things Trump said or was quoted as having said I didn't like, but for me, as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of the major attraction of Trump, is that he stood against political correctness. I don't think he ever came out and said it, but that was a ray of hope that a lot of us had. When we see our society heading more and more towards political correctness, which is just a way to shame a whole group of people into being quiet. I like the fact that now we have somebody elected who said some very, let's face it, some very politically incorrect things. So I think political correctness is still, there's still this on the march, but at least it's been dealt a defeat of some sort here,
That's the end of the first half of my interview with Cal Wilson. Tune in next week for the rest of the show.
Get prepared before disaster strikes. PrepperRecon.com offers MOLLE-compatible individual first aid kits for your home, auto, or bug-out bag. These kits have everything you need to address a traumatic injury, including an Israeli battle dressing, quick clot, EMT shears, suture kit, steri-strips, tourniquet, tough strip bandages, and so much more. $99 includes shipping. Go to PrepperRecon.com and click the Store tab at the top of the home page. Order today before it's too late.